Good evening everyone, I'm Moonspirit and welcome back to the Moonspirit Experience. Let's face it, we all love the Disney movies one way or another, as well as the ones made by Pixar, and one of my favorites has to be The Incredibles. This movie was witty, funny, and absolutely exhilarating, but I like this movie mostly because I'm kind of a sucker for superheroes. But it's a crime that Pixar has not yet made a sequel for this. Instead, we get sequels and spin-offs to cars and planes. Because, well, sentient vehicles of all kinds sell tons of toys to kids. Kind of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But because this movie came out when it did, they had to adapt it into a video game, so yeah, I'm dwelling into the realm of movie-adapted video games. Actually, I was pretty curious about this game back in the day, and now I can finally see if this game is super or not. Unlike its crappy GBA iteration. Ugh. So let's suit up, but remember, no capes! This is The Incredibles on the GameCube. Now the game itself is your standard action platformer where you mostly play as Mr. Incredible and occasionally Elastigirl, which make up 75% of the game. They can do the usual punching and kicking, but they can also perform Incredi attacks, which are special attacks to help fend off large numbers of enemies. Besides that, there is your standard platforming segments like catapulting, swinging, pushing buttons or switches, collecting power-ups and whatnot. You know, the whole 9 yards. On paper, the game should be fine, but here's where the game falters. The enemies you encounter are the first problem. Some enemies can be beaten pretty easily, but most can take a while to destroy, especially when taking on groups of them. Not even the special attacks are that effective, as they can sometimes come back up. Doesn't help that there are some parts of the game that have respawning enemies, and it can get really grating after a while. There are a few mini bosses to fight, like the tanks, but they can be easily dispatched if you understand their patterns. As for the bosses, they are few and in between, but the most prominent one is most definitely the Omni Droid. The first battle wasn't too hard, but the second time around, however, gets a lot more difficult all of a sudden. I know it's supposed to be a much better killing machine, but this is nuts! Now let's move on to the other 25% of the game, Dash and Violet stages. Now their levels stray away from the beat 'em up formula into their own special levels. Dash's stages are an on-rails race to the finish, which is not as awesome as you may think. These levels play more like an obstacle course, and you must not bump into anything or else you lose. And I lost a lot, including my temper. The reason why is because of one thing. Dash will say his catchphrase upon every restart and it becomes incredibly irritating every time.
I'm the Dash.
I'm the Dash. I'm the Dash. I'm the Dash. I'm the Dash.
I'm the Dash.
I know you are! Shut up! God, it's like this game is punishing me for sucking at this level. The second level, however, is a lot more forgiving this time around since they took out that catchphrase. Plus, this level is actually pretty exciting this time around, especially when you can do this epic wall run. Violet's level is, well, think Metal Gear Solid, only except you die in one hit and you can't attack at all. Violet can only turn invisible, and yet she doesn't use her force field powers to protect herself. The problem is that her powers drain really fast. Even when you run past bad guys while invisible, they can somehow still see her and shoot her with such precision. Are these guards that well trained, or am I just terrible with invisibility? But I'm not kidding when I say her level is like Metal Gear Solid, because the guards do have the punctuation marks above their heads. One final level to note is when you take control of the Incrediball. Think Super Monkey Ball, but piloting a wrecking ball.
I came in like a wreck.
No! I refuse to acknowledge that song for a referential joke! Controlling the ball is a little tricky as you'll be rolling really fast and you can't fully control yourself that well. It will be pretty clear how hard it is to steer this thing, as what you'll mostly do in this level is destroy these generators by rolling into them. Problem is, most of them are pretty high up, and you cannot jump, so you'll have to use your knowledge of physics and use your momentum to roll up these concaving slopes to hit them. And it ain't easy as it sounds. Because this movie had to be used as a tablet for the game, there are some design issues that I found throughout the game, mostly in the level design and a few in the audio. First off, let me talk about the stages. Remember the building fire Mr. Incredible and Frozone go to? That scene turned into a level where you had to stop a group of pyromaniacs, where Frozone tells us what we have to do.
After you take out those guys, out!
I'm sorry, what?
After you out!
What?
After you take out those, the safe way out!
What?
After you out! English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
The rest of the game, though, mostly takes place on Syndrome's Island, and the problems start to settle in. There are some places where you can't time some of the jumps correctly, and sometimes you will fall into a pit that you swear it looks like you can land on it until you die. Even swinging is not as easy as it makes it out to be. Plus, you'll have to push a lot of buttons, twist these giant knobs, and open doors by repeatedly pressing a button in order to progress through the game. But sometimes these knobs have timers on them without telling you, which can make finishing a level a bit of a hassle. But it becomes more prominent when I played Elastigirl. It wasn't too bad initially, as I agilely attacked my enemies. This one section had me activating all of these panels and swinging to more platforms in order to push more buttons while beating up bad guys. And I had to do all of this for 6 minutes, and it felt like an eternity. Jesus H. Christ! But then there's this one part where I get to pilot the gyrocopter things, and this segment was really vague on telling me what I should do. I assumed that I had to shoot all the enemies around me, but I found out the hard way that it wasn't. Twice. The real objective was to destroy their towers, but it didn't tell me that I was supposed to do that. And even when I did find out that was the objective, they don't tell me where to destroy them exactly, as I had trouble finding a weak spot. A little direction is all I ask for, people! Now on to the audio department, as I found some interesting things that I researched. Samuel L. Jackson himself is in this game. No, really, he actually is a voiceover in this game. Check IMDb if you're a skeptic. Speaking of voice actors, I also found out that voice actress E.G. Daily is the voice of Elastigirl. You know, the voice of Tommy from Rugrats or Buttercup from the Powerpuff Girls. What really annoyed me was that every character that you play will be making small quips every single minute, and it doesn't help when the levels drag on.
I gotta get in shape.
Yup, clock's a ticking.
Finding bad guys is fun. How do I get into these situations?
It's not like I can practice this every day.
And I don't even exercise.
Need a lift?
I don't care what you have to say! The Borderlands game had a lot better quipping because at least they do it in moderation. Normally I would talk about the plot about this game, but it pretty much follows the entire plot of the movie anyway. But it had to be tweaked for the game, and the tweaks can either work for or against the game. Unfortunately, from what I found, it doesn't really work out, so before I tell y'all how and why, beware. This is going to be a long ass rant. So click on the annotation wherever, because this is going to be a while and I'd rather not bore you guys with my huge nitpicks. Don't worry, I can wait. Oh, still here? Okay, now then. The game does not follow most of the movie's plot cohesively, especially when it uses the movie clips. Basically, the game automatically assumes those who are playing the game already saw the movie and know what to expect. But what about those who have never seen the movie? They will not get any good explanations about the plot and they will get lost. The prime examples come in during, the middle, and end of the game. First problem is how Mr. Incredible gets to the island. The game misses that key plot point in the movie when Mirage sends the private tablet to him so he can contact her. Instead, we just get a glimpse of Mirage after the apartment fire level and then cut to Dash. But after Dash's level, the game cuts straight to Mr. Incredible in the ship with Mirage. Therefore, the game doesn't establish how they met at all. Unacceptable. Next is after Mr. Incredible defeats the Omnidroid. After Syndrome gives the go-ahead, the game transitions to Mr. Incredible getting a new assignment, but it's afterwards that bothers me when Mr. Incredible gets his new suit. We knew that Edna made the new suit for him in the movie, but she's never seen the game at all. For all we know, he has his old suit in one level, but brandishes a new suit out of nowhere at the next, suggesting to the player he had a spare suit hiding out somewhere. Come on! Edna was a great character and you sidelined her! What's worse is that they don't even establish Syndrome's identity, as that was one of the movie's biggest plot points. For all we know, Syndrome is just a typical supervillain who plans to take over the world. Speaking of Syndrome's plans, we know Mr. Incredible discovers what's in the hidden computer room, but in the game, he just gets in there and that's it. We never get to see what's inside and know what he's planning. Hell, even after Mr. Incredible evaded Syndrome after fighting the Omnidroid a second time, we get the cutscene where Elastigirl calls up her old flying buddy for a jet. Then we cut to Mr. Incredible as he infiltrates the base and then discovers Syndrome's plans. Once that level is over, we cut to Elastigirl in the jet already under attack. Question: how does she know where Mr. Incredible is in the game's retelling? We know in the movie that she found out about his whereabouts thanks to Edna. But remember that in this game, Edna doesn't exist, so how could she know? That raises a lot of questions, you know. There is, however, one good thing in the narrative structure of the game. The imprisonment of the Incredibles in any part of the movie has been nixed, and it actually works a lot better in context. You see, the game makes it look like Mr. Incredible still made a clean getaway after finding Syndrome's computer room, making it easier for him to be reunited with his family. And after the reunion, they still manage to avoid Syndrome's forces while Syndrome is carrying out his Chronos plan, making them able to find a way to get off the island easily. And that leads me to the last problem with the game's plot. The only way off the island that they know of is by rocket, which is what they are aware of. But when they do get to the rocket, they play the clip right to when Elastigirl says she can't fly a rocket. What? But you guys said you were all ready to prep the rocket earlier. Now you say you can't fly it? This plot point would make a lot more sense if they played that movie clip before the level began. That way their mission would make a lot more sense contextually. I'm sorry guys, I had to get that out of my system. All I'm saying is that this movie deserves a better representation than this. The final levels of the game are by far the most frustrating levels, as now there are flying henchmen in the fray, and they are very annoying. Elastigirl has no problems, since she can stretch her punches to swat them out. Mr. Incredible, on the other hand, there are only two ways to stop them: jump and swat them down, or throw objects at them. The problem with option 1 is really exhausting and time consuming, and option 2 is that it's too hard since there is no lock-on system when tossing objects at your targets. Elastigirl's level isn't that bad, but the beginning part really vexed me because of the flying enemies. The level starts in a room filled with lots of lava. The only way out is by swinging to pull these switches up top. The problem is that while I'm swinging, these guys attack with such aggression and I cannot attack, which mostly means I can get knocked down and fall into the lava. Mr. Incredible, however, deals with waves upon waves of grunts. It is at this point in the level that it feels more like padding and filler. Here's what I mostly did in this level: beat this amount of bad guys to get to the next section, beat up more bad guys so I can beat up more bad guys, beat up more bad guys to activate a panel or switch, rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat! But this time they brought more tanks, and it irks me because you have to fight them again and again and again! The only thought I had during all of this was, when would this level end? But at long last, it's time for the climactic final boss. And it is pretty anticlimactic. Remember when I said that the Omnidroid was tough the second time? Well, that difficulty dropped significantly, because to beat the Omnidroid, you had to get the remote by lifting the robot arm up, which can be done simply by ignoring its attacks, and then save your allies from its gunfire by throwing rubble or cars at it. After that, you repeat the previous two steps again. Then you finish it off by aiming the rocket-propelled droid arm at the Omnidroid to destroy it. Once you are successful, the game cuts to the Omnidroid's demise, which ended a really disappointing final bout. After that, credits roll as you can freely explore the final level as you see fit, which there is literally nothing to do. And when it ends, it ends. That's it. They don't even show Syndrome's death, not even the appearance of the Underminer, which this game spawned a sequel for. What? a load of crap. I beat this game within a few hours, but it felt really long as the pacing dragged on. But after all that, is there anything worth replaying this game for? Well, while I did manage to 100% the game somehow, there are bonus items to find which unlock concept art, but I don't really care enough for them. There's also supposed to be a battle arena mode you can unlock, which lets you fight off hordes of enemies, but I say, hell no! Why would I want to fight hordes of enemies over and over when I just did that throughout the entire game? Overall, this game was not worth beating, let alone another playthrough. With all that in mind, this game is incredible! Wait, hold on. Oh, sorry guys, there was a page break in my script, hold on. Let's see. Right, what I meant to say is, this game is incredibly bleh. Despite all the negative things I say about this game, it's not really that bad. I mean, this game had potential to be fun, but there are too many flaws with it. The combat is very repetitive, the level design was very tedious and monotonous, as you'll mostly be flipping switches and panels while fending off gratuitous amounts of enemies. Also, the difficulty swerves from easy to hard in all the wrong places, especially with the boss levels. Aside from the platforming segments, kid stages individually are not that fun either. Bottom line, this game isn't bad, but it isn't incredible. It's just a super disappointment. And if the game's sequel is just as disappointing as this, I'm not even gonna bother with it. Well, that's all the time I have for y'all today. So until then, I'm Moonspirit saying good night. And here's to the upcoming Incredibles 2 movie if and when it comes out. In the meantime, let me recite Samuel L. Jackson's monologue from Pulp Fiction because, well, he's in the game and the movie, so I think it's appropriate. Do you ever read the Bible? There's a passage I got memorized. Ezekiel 25:17. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the inequities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who, in the name of charity and goodwill, shepherds the weak through the valley of the darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers. And you will know I am the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon you.